Welcome to the 5 Minutes to Sexy podcast, where you will learn how to achieve your sexy potential in 5 short minutes a day. Join Lucy, the sexy mama coach, on the modern day mama's journey to achieve a happy, fulfilling, sexy life.
Hi ladies, it's Lucy, your host to 5 Minutes to Sexy. In today's episode, we're talking about how to exercise to strengthen your vagina. Yeah, you read that right, and you just heard that right. Now, I'm not talking about all of the little excerpts you see when you're checking out at the store about how to have explosive sex and 30 great positions to blow his mind or whatever. But if you're actually concerned about the health of your pelvic floor, especially as a mom and everything that our bodies go through in pregnancy and childbirth, because even if you had a C-section and you didn't have to push a baby out of your hoo-ha, you still have all that pressure for that latter part of your pregnancy in particular, where your pelvic floor just, really takes a beating, or it can take a beating, especially if you didn't begin your pregnancy with a particularly strong pelvic floor. So listen up, ladies, if you have had a child, but also if you plan on ever having a child and you want to be in the best physical condition outside and inside. Now, the answer to the weak pelvic floor situation is not to do a gazillion Kegels. You've probably heard that suggestion, do your Kegels, do your Kegels. Every pregnant woman has heard, do your Kegels. But how effective is that really? You see, a Kegel is simply a contraction of a muscle. So think of it like flexing your bicep. If you flex your bicep over and over and over, does it actually get stronger? Not exactly, although you'd be super good at flexing your bicep. If you're into that kind of thing, then go ahead. But if you're actually wanting to strengthen your pelvic floor, then that is not really the way to go about it. It gets you a tight pelvic floor, and it's not the same thing. Tight is not the same as strong. And I don't mean like tight in there like you want it to be tight after you have kids. No, that's a totally separate thing. Although, ladies, I'm sure your husband will greatly appreciate you learning how to flex that muscle for other reasons. But if you want a strong pelvic floor to prevent things like, prolapses and other horrible things that can go wrong in there when you have a weak pelvic floor, then what do you do? What do you do besides Kegels? Because that's all we hear about. There is one glaringly obvious solution that we just don't talk about very often, and that is glute strength. So ladies, you have got to strengthen that backside. The fact is that the more we move away from our natural ways of doing things, the harder it becomes to do things like give birth, go to the bathroom, keep, hold our pee in when we're trying to run or laugh, especially after we have kids, or just keep our organs in the places that they should be. And doesn't that sound just like the basics, the bare basics of what we expect from our bodies, whether we have kids or not? I mean, it's really no surprise that women in industrialized and post-industrialized nations often have much more difficult births than the ones in less modern societies where they haven't given up the natural technique of squatting on a regular basis. But when we so drastically change the way that we involve in the laboring process, and even the way that we sit on the toilet and, do our business is not the way that our ancestors did it. So because weak glutes plus way too many Kegels equals pelvic floor dysfunction and weak pelvic floor, what can you do? Here are 2 things that you can practically do now to strengthen your pelvic floor. And they both involve squatting. One is to use weights to do your squats. So do weighted squats. It doesn't have to be a ton of weight. Just, strengthen those glutes in the squat position. 2 is to spend as much time as you can each day, working up to 10 minutes, ideally a day, in a full body weight squat position. Now, as you're doing your squat, keep these things in mind so that you do them properly. Keep your feet firmly planted on the ground. Keep your stance about shoulder width apart. Do not let your knees bow inward, and keep your chest out and your back straight, and actively pull yourself between your hips and not just sink into the squat. Now, when you're at the bottom of the squat, Pause before exploding back up. Don't bounce. It's not a bouncing movement. It is a strengthening movement. And then always keep your knees tracking over your feet instead of going outward and inward. I mentioned the knees twice because that is one of the most common mistakes in a squat. And I want to make sure that you really get that message. Watch what your knees are doing when you're in that squat position. Not only is squatting super great for your pelvic floor strength, but it is just really practical for everyday life. So that is the tip of the day. Strengthen your vagina by doing squats. All right, that's it for today. And thank you for joining me on the journey to sexy.
Thanks for listening to 5 Minutes to Sexy. For more on how to be a sexy mama, visit sexymamamovement.com. See you there.